Hello. Good afternoon. I was about to say good morning. It's not morning. Good afternoon. Welcome back to the Dreamcatchers podcast. I'm Jamie. My sister Marissa.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. We are thrilled to be here with two guests today. We literally, right before we went on air, were like trying to find space to all fit in here. So here we are. We're here at a Shared Universe in Red Bank live today for an episode of What's the Word? And today's word is retreat, which we will get to why in a moment. Wanted to give these lovely ladies to my right. Hold on, I'm just sharing this on my social platforms because, you know. These lovely ladies to my right the opportunity to introduce themselves. So I'd love for you guys to tell our audience, our listeners, who you are, your business, and then we'll get unpacking as to what you do and why you do it and how you met each other.
Unpacking?
What? Yeah, unpacking for our retreat. I mean, who hates... I literally got back a week ago. Was it a week ago? Literally a week ago tomorrow from February break, and my stuff is still sitting in the packing cubes. So, by the way, get packing cubes if you don't have them. Shameless plug. I'm obsessed with them. They're still sitting on my floor. So, yes, I would love to unpack what you guys are doing and how you met and all the things. But go ahead and introduce yourself for our audience.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kerry Bray. I am the founder.
Can you hear her? She needs to be closer.
I'm the founder.
Get in there.
Of Wander Travel Company.
What is Wander Travel Company, Kerry?
So I am a luxury wellness travel advisor and also retreat planner and advisor.
Wonderful.
It's fun.
You like how I led that question?
I do.
I was like, tell me more.
Yeah.
And Kerry's a dream partner, which we'll get to in a little while. So we're just so happy to be helping her build her business.
Yes, I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Of course. And what about you, Siobhan?
Yes, thank you guys for having us and Kerry for the opportunity here today. I'm Siobhan Gallagher. I am the founder and owner of Monarch Wellness. I wear a couple of different hats. I'm also a fitness instructor at Poe and Rumble and Clementine in town. And fitness led me into wellness, and wellness led me into retreats. And I connect people to a better way of life. So I am not a nutritionist. I am not a nurse or a doctor, but I have connections to those people. So I'm like the medium in between, like the problem and the solution.
Sounds like us, right? A little bit.
Yeah.
Professional connector, but
Yeah.
just at different industries.
Right, exactly.
I love that. Yeah. Well, welcome. Marissa, did you want to add anything to our introductions
I
today?
just always like to say that it's an honor and privilege to share space with talented people that are doing great things. I'm barely sharing the space because I'm like off the grid in my oversized sweater on camera. Sorry for that choice. But I
Don't worry, I'm in my tennis clothes. You win.
am a fan of all things that I see from the two of you. I think they're high energy and positive and inspiring, and I really think that that is something we all continue to need, light and life in our worlds.
Yeah.
And the combination of your dual energies, I think, are really inspiring for anybody that's listening, whether they get to partake in something that you plan or you curate, and or are able to take that on wherever it is that they live in this world. Because time for ourselves is precious and unutilized most of the time.
Yeah.
And how we spend time for ourselves is never really quantified. And I think what the two of you are doing is quantifying self-care.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's so true. And I think that, often people might listen to this episode and think, oh, I'll never really get to go on a retreat, or I wish I could get to go on a retreat one day. And I think what we will probably talk a little bit more about today is that the concept of the word retreat, it does not need to mean to fly on a plane with you both to Mexico, although we all really want to do that.
Okay.
But there's other ways to find reprieve in our day and figure out ways to fill our buckets and things like that. So I think, we could talk about that a little bit. But to start, our favorite first question, and full disclosure, as we always say, our guests get the questions prior, but doesn't mean that you may not stumble over the answers. So forgive us. I mean, we forgive you if you need to think for a moment. But our first question is always the same, which is, we are a queer podcast, right? We are dreamers and doers, obviously, and we all are. That's kind of why we have our guests on the podcast. But a lot of the time, what we do currently can connect to what we wanted to be when we grew up, and or not. But I'd love to hear what it is that you wanted to be, and what was your first kind of earliest memory of what you wanted to do. Because I'm going to guess, it might be, the answer might be, luxury travel advisor or fitness instructor, or, all the other things that Siobhan is. But what is your earliest memory of what you wanted to be? And I'd love to kind of, Marissa actually is best at this, trying to correlate what you do now and how you.
Are you guessing first?
No, but it's always fun to guess. But no, I'd love to hear what it is that your earliest memory of what you wanted to be.
Well, I'll go first, but a marine biologist, believe it or not.
Wait, you are not our first.
I was going to say somebody recently said that.
Really?
Yes, and now I can't
But
remember
look at
who.
you live close to the water.
Yeah, you live. At least you live by the water.
Yeah, and I was just drawn. I used to watch these Discovery Channel shows as a kid, and I felt so bad for either endangered species or just an animal that was hurt on the beach. And I was like, I want to help them. And I'm not necessarily connecting all of the dots to where I am now, but I have been told by, energy healers and things that you have a natural ability to heal. So I think maybe part of that traveled along my journey there. So, and I do love animals.
I could connect those two with some dark humor that's inappropriate.
Go for it.
But, as far as beached.
Beached whales.
Yeah. Sorry. That's not okay. By the way, that's not okay.
Not okay right now,
it's not.
especially.
Oh, and that also happened.
And the dolphins.
Yeah, and the dolphins.
I know.
What happened
And
with the
before
dolphins?
that, it was the seals.
What happened with the dolphins?
They got caught in shallow water, and by the time somebody called to get them rescued, it was too late. They couldn't get them back out. And I guess technically, I don't know why, as a layman.
But when we see them swimming, they seem like they can.
No, right at the shore. And they couldn't get back out because they were in the sand. So sad.
Maybe we're
upsetting.
losing beach or something.
Anyway,
Probably.
womp womp. Anyway,
Okay.
All right, Carrie.
Anyway, just-
on that note, on the dead dolphin note, Carrie, what did you want to be when you grew up?
So I did want to be a flight attendant when I was younger. And
No way! I love that.
I actually did become a flight attendant, but not directly. I had other jobs before that. And it has not been linear to where I am now.
Well, even the way that you just said linear, that's a lot of our questioning is that this particular arm of our podcast, Talking What's the Word, is people like yourselves that don't necessarily have a linear resume or, career path. Whereas we have another arm of our podcast called What's Your Story, which is true dream climbers, as we call them, people that are just traditionally climbing through the ranks and continuing to kick butt
And healing and lighting in their own ways, but
Correct.
in their channel.
In their channel, where you obviously have found this path for different reasons. Okay, so flight attendant obviously is a pretty easy thing to connect to.
Yeah, that's not
Travel
gonna
agent.
that's not gonna stump
Not going to stump you. But I do think that there's something to be said about wanting to be in the air and travel. And do that and actually being able to travel. Because when you are a flight attendant, correct me if I'm wrong, you're doing a ton of traveling, but you don't always have a ton of time in all your cities.
Absolutely.
So now you actually are making a point to visit cities that you actually want to be in and or help others plan those trips.
Absolutely.
You do know how to navigate turbulence, literally and figuratively, though.
Yes.
That's right. There is a new song on the Pink album. I'm obsessed with Pink, by the way. If I don't say that enough, I don't know if I do on here, but I'm obsessed. She's my number one. New Pink album that dropped on Friday, there's a song called Turbulence, which you should listen to because it's wonderful. And it's also, you would love it, it's about raising teenage daughters.
You mean them raising us?
Correct. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your business. Obviously, we could spend all this time, and we do end up spending time, kind of how did you go from wanting to be a flight attendant to actually doing what you're doing now? So I'd love to hear maybe just a quick, it doesn't need to be a 15-minute thing, of how you got from wanting to be a flight attendant to now, a little bit. It doesn't need to be the full trajectory, but did you go to school for any of these things? Did you think about doing these things in college? Did you have internships? Because again, being a career podcast, if somebody's listening that didn't necessarily, want to book your retreat, but finds inspiration in your story as to how you got to be planning these amazing trips for people. Give us a little backstory there of how Kerry went from wanting to be a flight attendant, becoming one, and now doing this for a living.
Sure. And that's something to speak to, is that it's not, when you see someone in the season that they're in, it's not always that, like I said, linear, and how it would just go from one to the other to the other. And so sometimes you don't know all the things that are happening at the same time are leading you to where you end
Of course.
up. And so I had become a flight attendant, and then
Who'd you fly for?
I used to fly for Delta.
Okay.
Yeah.
Love the cookies.
It was a lot of fun.
Biscoff.
then
Biscoff cookies.
and then I met my husband, and we started a family. And so it felt like the natural next step. I became an at-home travel agent.
Okay.
And I loved it. And I used to specialize in honeymoons and destination weddings. And then we went on to have 2 more children. And I started to do that part-time and raise our children and be home with them. And then in about 2010...
And at that time, were you working for a company, like doing that for somebody, or doing it for yourself?
I always worked for myself.
Okay.
And so about 2010, I started going on my own wellness retreats. So I'm a wellness seeker, and which is one of the things that connects Siobhan and I, and all of us.
Term
really.
we like to.
But, yeah,
I like that,
wellness
seekers.
seekers. And so, as the next step from there, it was I started going on all these wellness retreats for myself, and I started really digging in deep to my spiritual practices, because I have we have a special needs son, and I was trying to figure out how to really approach my parenting different from a different place. And so that also got me on the path of yoga and meditation, and then that became a natural progression of people wanting me to share that with them who hadn't been to those classes before, and understanding and seeing how it was present in my life and the changes it was making, all the while I was still doing travel very part-time. And as I'm going on the retreats, and as I was becoming a meditation and yoga teacher, and still doing travel and not seeing all the dots connect, slowly and surely they had started to. So in 2020, I had planned to come back to travel full-time, but
Then
we all
travel
know.
paused.
Yep, absolutely. And so then it actually gave me even more ideas and thoughts, and how I've been specializing in wellness, but also how to bring that to others, and what their wellness travel journeys would look like. And then really in 22 is when I was, about May of 22 is when I came out in full force.
Yeah. And actually, this is a good way for me to interject, because I've become very versed in Kerry's business, because we're working together to help her build it and figure it out and kind of package it even more. And so what I learned from talking to her, which I think is really important to share, is that Wander can kind of help in 3 ways. You're looking for wellness travel, and you just want somebody to help you figure out like where to go to find that, she can help you. If you are just looking for luxury travel with maybe not so much a wellness hat, but like maybe a little bit of a wellness hat on, she also can help you. And or as an instructor that's looking to plan a retreat that doesn't necessarily have the time or the space or the energy or the knowledge to plan something, she also can help you. So we've helped her kind of package those things to share that with the world, because I think that's a really interesting piece of your puzzle that is different than others locally that do this work. I know Merce and I always say it's like we're not the only people that are career coaches and whatever else we are. You're not the only fitness instructor, wellness guru in the area. But what makes you different? And that's why we're here today, is the layers of what you're doing and all the hats you wear and all the hats you wear. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to tell our listeners and the world and your followers and listeners that if they're looking for those things, that they can find you. And I think that's really important.
I mean,
Work
that's
that
awesome.
you're doing. Yeah, it's really awesome.
So let me, hold on. Can I? Okay. So you're also a certified yoga instructor.
Yes.
So you were.
She also can lead a retreat.
So you could lead the retreat. You've been on several, and then you were the travel agent. So you combine all of those things to be like a pinnacle of someone like Siobhan to tap into and say, hey, listen, I'd like to take my group or my followers on a retreat. But that is very daunting.
It's a huge undertaking.
To plan, as I've been on another incredible woman's retreats, and I know
Carrie
that,
knows this. We've talked
yeah,
about
like, I
Tootsie.
know that it's a mammoth
it's so
to
much
plan.
work to
Yeah.
plan.
So she could just tap her resources and say, hey, I'm me. This is what my following's like. And you can say, okay, this group would probably like an active, or this location or this location. and you're curating it for them. And that doesn't have to be, just so happens that we are local, but that could be for you for anywhere.
Yeah.
Any instructor, anywhere.
I love
And that's
it.
amazing. I love that for you.
Yes, well, that's the great thing is it can be anywhere, but it's also extremely exciting when you have a synergy with somebody locally and you just really connect. And then the other half of that is I've done it, I understand it, and I enjoy it. It's you know, I feel passionate about it, and also to be able to see somebody else's dream come true, and I'm able to help them facilitate that. That's amazing because. You know, and we'll get
You are
into
a
more about
Dreamcatcher.
retreat. Yeah, on both sides, we'll talk about retreats. You know, internally and externally, but to be able to help someone whose dream is to be able to offer transformational travel and this experience to other people, and be able to facilitate that and make it happen that's amazing to me.
Yeah.
and really lights me up. And I just
Well, not only are you gifting that
Love
to
that,
the
yeah.
instructor, but also little pieces of that experience
To all the people
to
that
all
go.
the people that receive, right? Because going on a wellness retreat is a luxury, like in so many definitions of the word. It's a gift that keeps on giving. I mean, I went on a retreat in
Absolutely.
2018, and I call upon it on a regular basis. And if it weren't for that retreat, our podcast wouldn't have a name. So
Literally
there-
named our
there are
podcast the
things that
Dreamcatchers after our
happen.
retreat with Tootsie.
Yes. There are things that happen when you are off grid that you can't recreate anywhere. So to be able to do that time and time again, and then with somebody that you mutually respect, I'm proud of you. That's exciting.
That's really cool. Really cool. All right, so Siobhan, tell us a little bit about your journey to where you are now.
Yeah, so my marine biology did not happen. And when I was in college,
Science was a little hard.
I was like, whoopsie. You know, but so I ended up at Fordham University and became a communications and media studies major. That led me, I had an internship in college. That was the good thing about going to school in the city is that I had an internship at McCann Erickson Advertising. And then I had a regret in my life. Don't like regrets. I had not studied abroad. So I was like, I'm going to turn this thing around. I went to my teacher. I got the okay to get an internship in the summer. And I was going to get 4 credits for it. Yay. My mom and dad were pleased by my negotiations. And I took off to Hawaii. And I was in the PR department at the Sheraton Waikiki in the Royal Hawaiian.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, I'm by the sea, I'm traveling, everything is working out, and I get credit for school. And then I landed in PR in the real world. And that's where I was for a good long time, event planning, media relations, and then I had kids. Wasn't comfortable commuting to the city with both of them. I took a hiatus, and exercise and fitness sort of shook me up from the mundane day-to-day. I was music obsessed, and so it was bothering me that rhythm wasn't hitting and things weren't dropping, beats weren't dropping, and I was like, I'm going to do this. So I got certified to be a spin instructor in 2017, and then started teaching at Poe. I did floor classes. I teach Firebeat there. What was that? Probably 2019. And I still sub at Clementine, and now I'm a boxing instructor at Rumble. I just keep saying yes to things. So, but in my heart of hearts, travel is where my passion is, and Kerry and I align on so many different levels. And I think like attracts like, and I had run 2 wellness retreats, one in the Smoky Mountains and one in Sedona, and it's a boatload of work, and it was like a breath of fresh air when we met, because I'm like, wait, you can provide all these things for me?
How did you guys meet?
She found us online and reached out with this little
awesome.
email, and we were just like, yes.
Look
yes,
at that.
yes, yes.
A
Look at
courageous
Courageous
solicitation.
Cold call. Yeah, I love it.
I love that too.
Yeah, so that's
Tell
where
us
we
a
are.
little bit about Monarch Wellness, because we've been exposed to it before. We've been at events together, but what is it that you can do for people, and when they're looking for wellness connections and such, you just have kind of this knowledge, so you share it, or what is
Right.
the way that people can utilize
So
that?
it's zigged and zagged, the business model. My business partner left at the end of August, so I was there to make the decision on like, what do I do? I am back in school right now for creative content and entrepreneurship. So I am in a program to help coach me. So I'm still reinventing the brand, but
Okay.
what locally what it does is we have a Monarch monthly membership, so we have aligned with different affiliates around the area in different wellness modalities, from skincare to nutrition, meal planning, cryotherapy, everything from like detox spas. So it's sort of like somebody approaches me and then I curate a little plan with them on like what's lacking or how I can be of service to connect them to the right areas. Or if they're a Monarch monthly member, they get significant discounts at all of the places that Monarch's affiliated with. So you get like 25% off of all of your services if you...
Like a concierge. A concierge to
Yeah, wellness
places that are
concierge.
unknown to them.
Yeah,
Love that.
so I just did like a challenge, a reset challenge with our nutritionist, which was a meal delivery service.
I saw that.
Yeah, and then it followed up with cleansing concepts to do like a colon cleanse, lymphatic drainage to release all those toxins. I do motivational coaching through fitness and if they need help in other directions as well. I do have an in-house meditation program. So there's a lot of layers.
And when they're looking for work, you'll send them to the Dreamcatchers.
I will. Yes.
Yes,
It's just we continue to open doors.
Yes.
I just have to say, like, now, I mean, I've known you through our kids, through school,
Yeah.
through community for 6 and something years. And just, it's so funny when you, like, put the pieces together like this. Like, you're such a media person. Like, I should have known.
yeah.
Like, I mean, just being, like, a city recruiter, like what we've done forever, like you scream media agency, like, hey, I'm a media agency person. So I fully get that. And I also love, so I think one of the things we talk about in a lot of conversations, and something I'm focusing on myself right now, it's the before, right? So we have several stages of before. We have what we
And she doesn't even watch Handmaid's Tale. Do you guys, by the way?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
I do
it's
not.
like, what did you do before?
I did
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
So I did
Same
not
kind
watch
of
that. It
concept.
was too big of a, too dark, too
But the
twisty, and
concept
too
is,
long.
what'd you do before? Same
So
kind
what
of
did you do before? So like we had that before our kids. So you have before kids. And then you also have another stage of before of like when you leave an urban environment.
Yeah.
And then you try and figure out as a working parent or as somebody that was commuting or what life looked like before COVID without flexibility for creative industries, which should have been more flexible, but ironically we're not, right? And then all these people that were forced to reinvent maybe before they wanted to because their lives called them to.
Yeah.
So we all kind of entered our before other people entered their before. But I'm listening to you and you took all of your skills and
Events,
your,
PR.
and frankly your type A energy, right? And your ability to rally a crew.
Yeah.
And you're probably just picturing like the early 2000s Siobhan, like definitely after hours, like
I threw
with
the
all the
parties.
people. I'm just saying, like there's nobody that didn't make it onto your list. I get it. So like, and you're rallying that in your new community.
Yeah.
And doing so with the wisdom that you've picked up along the way.
Yeah.
And it's funny because we grieve our old lives, but our old lives help shape our new ones.
Absolutely.
It's so true. And I think,
You know, you didn't know, like, I'm tying back to her, sorry, but I'm tying back to you. You didn't know what you were creating while you were creating it. But as per hindsight is the best of all 2020, right? Like, you look back and you see all of your choices led you to this moment.
Yes.
Right? And we don't know how long this moment's going to be, but this synergy is going to be a really rewarding chapter in that. And then as you redefine what Monarch is, you'll use it to touch all of your different places.
I agree. And
Like
I
a true
think,
butterfly in all your different
yeah,
places.
so true. A true butterfly.
You know, the transformation.
I love that. And I think, to talk about retreats for a moment and the definition of the word retreat, we talked about that at the beginning, is, these two are planning this incredible retreat that we'll let them talk about in a minute. But I think, what often we need as humans is that step back, right? So it's not easy for a lot of people. Like you two, the reason why we invited you to be on today is because you two both embody what Marissa and I do, which is that you saw a need and you're filling the need. You're figuring it out, right? Where so many people out there, which is a lot of our listeners are looking for that inspiration to be like, I know I'm good at wellness. I know I'm good at travel. Like, all right. And then they just stop because they can't figure out how to do the things, right? And I give you both so much credit for taking a lot of what you've picked up along the way and actually making something out of it and having the wherewithal to do that. Because whether that was a retreat from your day-to-day life or having a child with special needs and being forced to kind of retreat back to say, what am I doing? Like, what should I do with all these skills? Marissa and I just had a meeting yesterday. People always say like, oh, do you actually like meet and like work? Yes, the answer is yes.
All the time?
We work together and have for almost 12 years. And yesterday we had like a meeting. We had to like retreat for a minute to be like, what are we doing? What's next? We have so much on our plates as the Dreamcatchers. We want to make sure that we are strategizing no different than I would for somebody like Kerry or for Siobhan.
No, we are guilty. We are guilty. I
Yeah,
wanna stand on that
sometimes you
soapbox.
just need to take
guilty
the
of
step
not
back.
always taking the advice that we share.
Because it's hard when you're building something too that you don't want to just like, keep going. And then you realize that like, you need to take that minute to be like, okay. And I give you a lot of credit for going back to school or for Kerry to reach out to somebody like me and Marissa to help you because there are people and programs out there that can just, okay. What are we working with?
A lot of really good things ironically started during the pandemic.
I agree.
Yeah.
But they also started because there was this call to action to heal however you could. And now since life has gone back in different directions post-pandemic, you had to edit or shift what that solution was so that it could make sense in the chapter that we're in now. So I think if you notice, you're not alone with anybody that started something new-ish in 2019, 2020, 2021, and are now retuning or revamping or recirculating. Because frankly,
we all are.
That mimics who we are as humans.
Yeah.
We all had to. No matter where you felt or how it affected you, we went through something. So in order to go through it, you need to change and look back and see if you want to fix and or stay
Adjust.
the same. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, I think that's a good segue into, typically our next question is like, where was your aha moment, right? I think a lot of us are waiting for like a light bulb to turn on, right? We're kind of like hoping that something's going to just shine or, and I think one of the things that we probably all have in common, and Marissa and I say this often, is we're light workers. We actually are the ones that turn on the light and then we turn on the light for other people. Which is what you guys do as well in your respective industries. So we talked a little bit about your aha moment, but I'd love to hear a little bit more like, where you are right now with your business. It's like, okay, and this is kind of from the vantage point of people out there that are listening that are maybe struggling right now with maybe finding their light and figuring out what they want to do, knowing that they have skills, but like can't, take the step. So I'd love to hear more about your aha moment of like you, for example, Siobhan, thinking, okay, you know what? Yes, I'm going to be a Rumble instructor. Like, is it just you're presented with opportunity and you realize this all kind of makes sense with your brand? Or like, where is your head around that kind of stuff as you've built who you are locally, which is, I would say, as an outsider looking in, kind of a fitness wellness leader, guru. You have a great social media presence. People are, you're getting better at that, which I know is difficult. We're working on that too.
Yeah, it's hard.
So tell us a little bit more about your kind of light and how you found it and how you then spread it.
Well, I decided probably sometime in the pandemic to like start being a yes person instead of a no person because like what I'm learning throughout my own personal journey is to like follow that fear, follow that discomfort because it's only a mindset shift in like what you can and cannot do. And I remember for New Year's this year, my resolutions, I was like, okay, no complaining and no putting yourself in a category where like, okay, I'm just not a morning person or okay, I just am really bad at technology. That I stink at math. Like you're just telling yourself these stories and I decided to like shut that down and say, I'm going to learn to be. So there are struggles within business, and mostly it comes down to technology because we are learning that, which is something I'm in the midst of learning right now. But I think my aha moment was just like, wake up, COVID got me going. Like, I can't even stand the state of affairs throughout everyone else's, like, they would come up to me and say, can you help? Can you teach me? I'm not in a good place. I'm not, yes, like, we can do hard things. So it was probably not one conversation, but multiple of the same sort of conversations.
Where you're like, there's something here.
Yeah, and I
can help with.
remember, and I haven't listened to it yet because it has not been a year, but it was probably 2 to 3 months ago. I had listened to a Mel Robbins podcast, and she said, I think it might have been her very first podcast. She said something about going into your voice memo and saying, this is where you're at a year from now. And like all the things that.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm curious sometimes because I truly forget. I think it was just
delete it.
A blinding
That would be
moment
so
for
mean.
me.
I would delete it by accident.
Right. I think it's still there. But I think it's a good practice just because you're like, I can accomplish anything that I actually voice out loud, say out loud. So I am in this transition period, and I am going to shock the world.
I love it. I love that. And Mel Robbins, that's our second shout out to Mel Robbins this month. We had another one earlier this month. But and I think that is a really great exercise. Actually, one of our first ever kind of wellness fitness gurus who we still very much love and look for up to, Lori Cole, who's been on the podcast. She's an original SoulCycle instructor. She used to do this thing on New Year's back when SoulCycle was one studio on the Upper West Side, and Marissa and I were. We don't talk about it that much anymore, but we were SoulCycle OGs. Like SoulCycle in this 2005 and 6 was if you're wearing the SoulCycle sweatshirt and you see somebody else wearing it, you know them. So Marissa and I were proudly SoulCycle OGs by accident at that time because my friend Lindsay, who found them on Daily Candy. Remember Daily Candy? I knew you'd appreciate that.
them.
You did?
I did.
Wait, that's
Siobhan,
so
no way.
random that I just said that. Oh my God, I love Daily Candy. Rest in
Danny
peace.
Levy.
Oh my
Was
God.
the founder.
That is wild that I
That's
just
a
said
really
that.
big deal. I fully know you now. I see you.
I love Daily Candy so much, and I love that you just reacted that way. Anyway,
Oh my God.
We used to get
Daily
them on
Candy-
the Today Show all the time.
For,
my gosh,
for
I
those
love
of
that.
you that don't understand,
I
the
know.
Daily Candy was Instagram, Reels, TikTok, Facebook,
In your inbox.
and LinkedIn all at once via one email at 8:30 in the morning.
and it was basically like before the skim was to news, what the skim is to news, which is like, like top line.
It
It
was
was
the
like, this is
first
what's hot
thing.
right now. You can't miss it. And if somebody got into Daily Candy, it was a huge win.
It was the first thing that took pop culture off of People magazine.
And I love the
InStyle
name, by the
magazine,
way, too, if you think about
And-
it. Yeah.
Put it into
best.
I had
a
so
way that
much
was
fun.
different.
I gotta-
Did you know it?
Oh my God, it was the best. I cannot believe that.
Yeah.
So Daily Candy wrote about SoulCycle before SoulCycle was anything, and my best friend Lindsay, who's a huge fitness nut, read about it and was like, "Screw it, I'm going to try this weird class of, riding to the beat indoors," which was like not a thing. It was kind of a thing at gyms.
Who liked spinning at the
Yeah.
gym? It was the
And then
worst.
anyway, so Lindsay went and started taking my sister. So my sister was always open to trying something new. And I was like, which is so anti me now, if you think about it. I was like, absolutely not. I'm not going.
No, like Lindsay, so we're 4 years apart. So
Like my
Lindsay
best friend started going with
took
her.
me.
Yeah.
And we lived, by the way, not close. So just think about the city for a second.
Right. It
So
could take
you're
you an
you're
hour
We had to
and
like
a half.
picking a
schlep there.
place
Yep.
that is not close. I'm not going with her. It's spinning inside. Whatever.
I was like, no way, I'm not gonna like it. And Marissa like finally was like, because I grew up as a dancer and beat and rhythm and music is my jam. We've talked about this offline, and I was like, I'm not gonna like it. And Marissa literally looked at me. She was, "You're gonna fucking love it." And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll give it a try. So P.S. we went, and she had been going for a few months prior. But Lori used to do this thing every single New Year's. We'd write resolutions to ourselves, and they'd hold them for the entire year, and we'd open them on the following 31st, like literally a full year later at the studio. And because it was so small at that time and there was such a small community, they were able to manage it. I don't even know how they would do something like that now. They can't, but local studios could. It's a cool little idea.
Yeah,
And we used to open it, similar vibe
Yes.
of kind of like, this is where you're going to be in a year from now, or these are my, she didn't like the word resolution. She used to say, your intentions for the year, things like that. And it was so amazing. We did it like multiple years in a row before they became like equinoxed, to the max. But really cool idea. And I love that. And looking back at kind of how your year has progressed. Okay, so tell me a little bit about more your aha moment. Obviously, we talked about it a little bit, finding that you were doing all these things that were somewhat disjointed, but you thought so, but they were actually extremely all related, where you were like, you know what? That's it. Then you said it was kind of this May of last year. What was your kind of aha? What was your like, I've got to do something with this?
So I think it's a little bit different because I didn't have a specific aha. It was always a dream and it was always guiding me.
Yep.
I just didn't know how to make it a reality. And I didn't know what it was going to look like. And I actually knew what I wanted it to look like, but I didn't know. But when I would start to just trust and take the next steps that I started to feel called to and just follow, it started coming together for me.
Yeah. So it was a progressive light bulb. You had like a dimmer.
Yeah, it was a dimmer. That's
You're
right.
like,
Just,
here we go. Now we're at full blast. I love
Yes.
that. So I know I kind of define the word retreat and what it means to me. Have you thought about kind of, and I say this because I realize that some of these questions can be, not contrived. They're very Dreamcatchers-y questions. So like, I'm not expecting you to have like a different definition for retreat. But what is this trip and what you're doing now and the concept of this retreat? And actually, pause, you can tell us a little bit about this upcoming trip if you'd like, either of you. And what the concept of doing this for yourself and for others means to you.
Do you want to go? Well, you know what? I'll give you. So when we had met, there was it was like butterflies and fireworks and all of the things. And she said, wait, I have something for you. And this was this palmaya.
And you had already decided you wanted to go away. You just weren't sure where?
Yeah, she was trying to come to Sedona with us, and that didn't work out, children, whatever. And then we're like, okay, well, next time, where's the trip going to be? And Kerry's like, I got something for you. And I was like, yes, please. And one thing you said was like, not just alignment, but trust. And like, just to put this into such trusted hands. Kerry's been there and she's like continuing to go back. If you are a very well-traveled person and continue to go back to the same spot, it's a winner. So tell us like, why is it so unique? I mean, you've explained it to me, but like you've experienced it.
Yeah, so it's a progressive wellness resort. It's beautiful. It's in Mexico. And the best thing I think about it is that there's a little something for everyone. It has a spiritual grounding to it. It's in the Mayan tradition. It's on the beach. The beach is gorgeous.
Where in Mexico is it? I'm sorry.
There's in Riviera Maya. In Playa Car,
looking it up as we go.
actually.
Yep.
Yeah. And so it's this whole concept of progressive wellness, and it's the food. It's all vegetarian or vegan, but you can have animal protein if you ask for it. But it's unbelievable. I mean, I wish we had a restaurant like that around here. It's just incredible, from the food to the programming that they offer to this whole concept of it just feels like wellness the moment you walk in and all around it. And you're in the jungle. It's backs up to the jungle on the Caribbean Sea. So the ocean, it's just gorgeous.
You're like
it's
totally
just
one with nature.
so gorgeous. Yes, you're one with nature and with yourself. And I think that's one of the really important things about going there. And I've been there a few times. I hosted my own retreat there in January, and it was just incredible. And I really do believe in it, and that's why I feel like it's just such a special place.
I love that.
So I'll be teaching there, but then there's also both like restorative yoga, cacao ceremonies, psychedelic mushroom ceremonies happening.
I saw that in the
There's
caption.
like sweat lodges. We have a private sound bath.
Yes. Gong bath.
Forgiveness ceremonies. I mean, you could go as deep as you want,
Yeah.
or you can just enjoy the food and the surroundings.
So I think what's really interesting about this pairing and what you're telling me, because Kerry knows this and I can share, Siobhan, you might know some backstory too, but Tootsie, when she was trying to build her brand, she was actually one of our original dream partners. We helped her kind of create where she is now a little bit, and I did a lot of kind of work with her as a consultant to help her go from kind of A to B, which is where she is now. She's at like Z, but I helped her kind of get out of her own way that way with the retreats. And the reason why she loves going to Amansala and Tulum is that it's like a very plug and play type of place for her, right? It's like there, everything's there. So the difference in what you're sharing, which I think is really interesting, is that she leads all of the fitness that happens on the retreat. So this place is what you're telling me is that you can go and take Siobhan's class, but you also can do a bunch of other things. Fascinating. I love that.
Absolutely. And
I
like
love that.
like Siobhan said, it can be as light or as deep as you would like it to be. And that's
just like
the great part about it.
Got it. I love that. And how long are you going?
It's 3 nights, 4 days.
Love that.
I know. I think that's like a hot spot with like
Being able to actually disconnect.
disconnect, but also not feel like, guilty about staying too long or
Yep.
being away too long. I mean,
I also
everybody
think-
has that trepidation if you have children and obligations and work and everything else.
It's just a
Absolutely.
subset of our American culture. But
I know.
But it's so funny because after
another
3
podcast.
days, you're aware. I think what happens at 3 days is you're aware that if you had another 4, you'd actually feel 1,000% better. But you got enough in 3 to know that if you were to go away again for 3,
Yeah.
like it hooks you. A long weekend, the definition of a long weekend, you get what you need. Plus, it's like 1 extra sleep.
Yes.
And then the wheels don't fall off at home.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yes.
And it's all inclusive. So there's like 24-hour room service if you wanted something at midnight. Like and then even like
Juice bars
the
and a
juice
taco
bars
truck.
and the tiki
and-
bars
yeah.
and like it's.
I love that.
So it's sort of once you sign up, everything's done.
But what is wellness, or actually even better, what does the word retreat mean to you
The word retreat means to me
personally?
to return inward. And that it's not lost on me, these incredible trips that you can go on. This one that we have planned, like this is amazing. And the things that it takes to make that happen, and the finances too sometimes. So understanding all of that, retreating isn't necessarily this external experience in a beautiful place. It can also just be those moments with yourself, quiet.
Like going to Target
internal.
alone. Like to
Oh,
me.
it can be going to Target alone. It could be for me. It's
Sometimes
Barnes
I'm
and
just like
Noble.
walking up and down those aisles, man. You know what I mean? I'm just
Yeah.
like, this is a retreat. Like I always say to my friends, I'm like, when we're trying to like make a plan, I'm like, I literally would sit in the Target parking lot with you. Like I'm not kidding. Like let me get my iced coffee. Like that to me is enough. Like so the fact that you're then able to provide, obviously kidding aside, these incredible experiences too. You just have to remember to take time for yourself, and if you can
It
take
does
more than just
take-
a couple of
when
minutes.
you are fortunate
Yes.
enough to go through the transactions to go on this trip,
Yes.
right? The process of paying for it, allocating the time, making the arrangements for your family, all that stuff is helping you, proactively helping you to get in the zone so that you can actually be present for yourself. And then once you've learned how to do that, you can do it again in the Target parking lot,
Yeah.
because you take those skills with you. Right?
100% agree. And
Very
that's,
true.
we talk about this 2018 trip that we were fortunate enough to go on. I was fortunate to go again since then, but Marissa and I, when we went on that trip, learned, well, Marissa knew a little bit better than I did, but like truly how to meditate from Meredith Kolaski, who we have in common and love. Actually, that's how I met Kerry. And she taught me, and actually Ming knows Meredith as well, that when we were learning how to meditate, which obviously it's like, okay, sit at 6:30 in the morning in Tulum sunrise on the beach with no other, distraction. Of course you can meditate, right? Ish. But she was explaining to us these meditative, concepts of just 5 deep breaths. You could do them in the shower. You could do it anywhere. So I think what you're saying, Marissa, and I think there, all of this is saying is you don't have to go on these amazing vacations to get some of this into your life. And I think, following along with their journeys and connecting with folks like Kerry and Siobhan, and maybe even finding that, Siobhan's Rumble class allows you to retreat for an hour and punch the shit out of some bags and things like that. But, I think that that's important to share, is that we realize that these are luxuries. And if you're not local, things like that, how do you find those moments of reprieve and in the noise? Because it's very noisy. Very noisy.
I actually looked the word up, and it says to withdraw.
To withdraw.
from really traditionally like a fight, like a war, a fight. But maybe that's an internal fight that you're having with yourself, or, you know, just a break from the norm. But it's like to pull back, to come, to draw within. And you have to create those opportunities. You can't.
You have to create the opportunity.
Yeah.
So that's what I was saying, that the transactions of finding you two, creating the time, paying for the experience, those are all part of the work, right? And then you could download that process and make it just about going to your class. But I think that word retreat, you know, I think it's just an incredibly powerful word.
I agree.
And we all suck at it.
Yeah.
Like,
We need a little
even
help.
us.
Yeah, it's hard.
Even us. Even people that lead with light, that curate and plan for your pause or your big moment, suck at it.
Yeah.
So
Need help.
I'm listening to you, and
lean
I'm
in.
so inspired by you. You lean in, exactly. I'm so inspired for you to create these moments for others. And then, by the way, when other people watch what you've created after the fact, you know, it will hit. I'm sure there'll be some jealousy. Fine. We'll move that away.
FOMO.
That's the downside of social media sometimes. But it should inspire others
Right.
to find retreat. I think you're very good at that on your social, like where you'll be like, okay, I don't know, recently you caught me with like you didn't want to go for a run, which
Right.
of course I know. I mean,
Right.
there are two people in the world, people that run, people that don't. We won't get into that right now. Anyway, so you didn't want to go. And that says a lot because that's your thing. And you made yourself.
Yeah.
And you actually had like a really, like a moment, like I made myself, I didn't want to go, and it hit me. And you were like really vulnerable in the share. And then, I don't know, it just was like, I like that. Like, it shows the hard work that it took to get to your spot.
Yeah.
And like this shows the hard work. This was not something that was born yesterday.
Right.
It's wisdom married with expertise.
And even with like going on a trip like this, I mean, that's really challenging for people.
Yeah.
That's not.
You've gotta be
easy.
brave.
I mean,
No.
once you get there, it's amazing. But like, just to make that decision is
It's a big deal.
actually
It's a
challenging.
really big deal.
To put yourself first like that.
You got to just count down and do it, and
Yeah.
then like, you've received so many benefits.
When
I
is the
agree.
trip?
May 3rd through May 6th. It's a Wednesday through a Saturday. So everyone will have time to regroup on that Sunday, prepare themselves for the week.
So I'm your emergency contact for DC, or
yeah, I got you.
I'm just saying that weekend's flagged for me.
Yes, I
Okay.
got you.
I got you.
Yeah, you can come in my suitcase.
Yeah.
And it's super easy. Direct flight to Cancun, and then the transport's like 35, 40 minutes.
Yep.
Safety is of the utmost importance, so Kerry has all of that security. Like, she's been there and she couldn't have felt safer and more at home. So, and I just want to point out how cool this place is, because Robin Arzone from Peloton was just there.
She was. I saw it on
There
her
she
social.
is. That's
Yeah.
great.
The
Follow
resort
along their journey.
is Palmaya.
Yeah, the House of Aya.
Aya.
House of Aya.
I feel like I've gone down this rabbit hole before. I feel like I've been on that site before.
House of Aya? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been there too, I think. Okay.
A good 2 in the
So,
morning spot.
couple wrap-up questions that we love to kind of, now that we've unpacked your stories, and I use the word unpack again, which I love, and also kind of how you met and how you came to this trip and all of the things. Just to bring it back to each of you individually for a moment, you know, we believe that as dreamers and doers as we are, everybody has a superpower. I could probably guess what I think both of yours are. And I could probably give you one if you don't, or I could assign you a superpower if you don't feel like you have one. But I think this is a good exercise. And we do this with our clients a lot that are kind of stuck in their ways, or they're figuring out what it is that they want to do with their business or with their career. And I think that identifying your superpowers is a really important skill and really important thing to say, you know what? I'm really good at this, and I'm better at it than most people. And that's why I'm going to share it with the world. So what would you say your superpower is? I think I could guess, but do you have one off the top of your head?
I think it's in like the title of my website. I'm a connector.
Yeah.
And it has always been something that came easy to me.
Same.
It's like I could be
It's like, oh, you know who you should meet? Constantly. Yes.
right.
Yeah.
I could be like a headhunter to connect it. I could, but wellness was my passion, so that's
You can skip head hunting. I've been
we've
there.
done that too.
You're right. Yes,
tough.
you guys
That's
are
what we do.
connectors.
Yeah.
I mean, this is and I think it's a personality type, and I think you are called to it, and you just at one point I decided to put it to action.
Yep.
So that's probably what I would say my superpower is.
I think that's a good one.
I like that
What
one
about
for
you,
you.
Carrie?
I think I know yours, but I want to hear what you say.
Okay. I would say I didn't used to think it was until I've really embraced it, but my empathy is my
Is that what you're going to say,
become my
Marissa?
superpower.
Close.
Oh.
So I was going to say something close. I love the word empathy. I am one. I'm an empath. Which is
It's a blessing.
It's a blessing and a curse.
Yes, I have an empath.
Yes.
Well, we can talk about that.
Yes.
It doesn't get easier. I was going to say your patience.
Well, I
There's
definitely
something about your sensitivity, which would be your empathy,
yeah.
where I feel like you take things in, and I feel then it shapes your moves. Like, and I feel like you are, I don't want to say methodical, but I think that you are patient in your thought. And that maybe comes from years of practicing yoga, but the way you feel when
Definitely.
you're processing questions, like you are mindfully taking the time to think through things for others. And I think maybe that's patience plus empathy in like some sort of
Empathy?
Yes.
I don't know, that sounds weird.
Yeah.
That might be
That might be
X-rated.
dirty.
Yeah.
That's for
Something
the
about
next
that. Yeah.
conversation.
But I like that. Empathy is a strong one.
Well,
like that.
patience did not come easily, so that's definitely a
Patience
practice.
is earned.
Yes, for sure.
That's my resolution every year.
She's
More patient.
every year she makes the same resolution.
No, I've changed it
How we do
recently.
it.
I've become a little bit more patient, I think. COVID helps with that, I think. COVID helps with a lot of those types of challenges. Okay. So we also believe in mantras in addition to superpowers and just kind of action words and things like that. We obviously talked a little bit about intention and resolution. And I love what you were saying about, you said something earlier that really resonated with me as, because Marissa and I struggle with this a lot, where she'll be like, well, I'm just not the creative one, you know, or something like that. Or I'll be like, you're just better at this than I am. And there are definitely times where, especially in your career, that you just have to lean into other people that do it better.
Right.
But then
So
there are
I
other
do
things
say
where
that a
you're
lot.
like,
It's not like I'm not creative.
No.
It's just more natural for her. So
but it is interesting. Like we were on a text right before this about something similar, and we're talking about how we want to teach others a little bit of the gifts that we have. And I think that it's there's a fine line as a business owner, and I'm sure you can agree, of leaning into others that do it better, like this, and learning to do it yourself, and finding the time to say, okay, I know I can do this, but I know I just want to have Kerry do it, you know? And I think that's really challenging as we're going through it. So anyway, that being said, that was just a sidebar because you said something earlier about, I think you said like, I want to learn this, or I
And not putting yourself
Yes.
in categories.
not putting yourself in
Yeah.
categories. I loved that.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that's necessarily a mantra, but I think that it could probably lead ourselves into one. Do you guys, maybe more so you, Kerry, because you're in the meditative space and yoga space, do you have any mantras or any sources of inspiration that you go to, whether it's every day or while you're planning something or when you're in the zone? You know, I can start us because I think it's important, because you said it earlier and I wanted to just reiterate it. One of my favorites is say yes. So, however, during this podcast journey, we have had so many incredible guests. Actually, this is our 76th episode. Our 75th was the last one that we did. And we didn't even realize it at the time until after. We're like, oh my God, we just had our 75th episode. We had a great conversation with a man named Julio, who is a friend of Tootsie's that we met through her and actually on the retreat. And he taught us about kind of putting up barriers and fences and kind of figuring out ways to say yes, but. Or yes and, right? But say yes is one of my favorites, which is before you're kind of like, nah, I don't want to do that. I always try to lead with positivity and a yes first. And then if I have to ask questions or say but or and, then sure. But that's mine. So just to give you some inspiration, does anybody have a mantra or something that they say to themselves? Kerry?
So I love the quote for many reasons. Not all who wander are lost. And obviously that's the name of my company. But the idea behind that too is the iteration, what the development of what wander is is all of those. It's part of that journey. So that's definitely
I love
a
that.
mantra for me on many levels,
I love that.
spiritually, business wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to wander around sometimes. Doesn't mean you're lost. What about you? Do you have
You're
one?
seeking.
Yeah.
I will show up. I will show up for myself. I will show up for others. I will show up, not just be present, like
actually show
physically
up.
present.
Yep. I love
will
that.
show up.
That's great.
I love that one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Marissa's thinking, what's happening in there? That's a good one, right? You like that one?
So I was thinking, I use the word wander in my life, but I use the word roam instead of wander. And I don't think there's enough of it because it usually is tied with free time, right? But when I'm reading, I feel like I'm wandering. So there's different ways to get to it. But however, for me, if I'm wandering, I'm usually lost. Although I meant
Not all who wander are lost, just Marissa.
I know. I'm just usually
Marissa's
lost.
a little
Now
lost.
you have that song.
Marissa's
in your
a little
head.
bit lost.
I'm always a little bit
Yeah.
lost
too.
because I'm somewhere else 90% of the time, but I am showing up.
Yes. Yes.
I do show up.
Yes.
I'm just usually a little bit late.
I have to tell myself every day. I mean, this is not. I've not nailed this. I'm like, are you showing
It's a
up?
hard thing to do.
If
as
I
a
commit
parent,
to
too.
something, I show up.
Yep.
That's it.
Right.
Done the
It's
end.
the commitment that's hard too.
No, but
actually
I
saying
have
yes to it.
actually become much
Where I say yes
more
and I show
honest.
up and then I'm exhausted. How am I doing?
No. My biggest issue is always just feeling bad for, disappointing someone else. But I think in my old age, I choose when to show up. And when I show up, I show up.
Right. Yeah.
I agree. That's really good advice. And I think actually that's a good lead into this is our second to last question. Our last question is my favorite, but and I say that every week, every time.
75 times.
Always. Do you have any piece of advice for our listeners, who are maybe, obviously there's two sets of listeners maybe in this conversation. It's the person that's looking to take retreats or learn more about retreats, but somebody also that's just listening for career inspiration. Do you have any advice out there about, that you could say to people that's like, if you had one piece of advice to give today that you didn't get a chance to say, like that's, this is what I want you to know about me. This is what I have to say. Anything? Especially if they're struggling. Usually, I should say this, not everyone that listens struggles, but like most of the people that seek out a career inspiration podcast are looking for something.
Yeah.
They're looking for some sort of light. So if
Right.
you have anything that you didn't get a chance to say.
Well, I mean, one of the things I had mentioned before is to like follow that discomfort, follow that fear, because it's your gut instinct telling you something. You're like, I can't shake that. Why does that thought keep happening? And I do think meditation helps with that. Like, especially when you're just like listening to the high vibration music without a guide, and like you go into like that third eye, and you're kind of like, and then things come to you. And you let them come to you, and if that continues to happen, it's signaling something. So it's just going internally and saying, okay, like someone's knocking on my door, and I got to go for it. So if you're feeling that you keep seeing signs of something or something's nagging you, like you should try that, do that, like go for it, like that. Don't hold back.
I agree.
Because then you're just putting the fire down, and we want to ignite.
We want to ignite the fire. I agree. What about you?
So I do bring it back to meditation a lot, which is really tuning out so you can tune in, which is speaking to what you're saying, because then your intuition, you really can get in touch with your intuition. You can hear it and you can trust it.
Yeah.
And I think when that comes to business or your career or, what's coming next, when you can tune in and really listen, you'll start to feel when those opportunities are the right next one, and you'll just start to feel like what your right
You're
next
like, I think
action
I'm on to
is.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, or it could be I'm totally off on something. This is not the direction for me, and I know that. I can feel that now, and making that pivot and shift, and knowing that you can do that at any time.
Yep.
And if you're like a really practical person and you want to play that card, you're like, what's
good
the
point.
worst thing that could happen? Okay. If this is the worst thing that happened, I feel like a failure, or I'm a little embarrassed it didn't work out, or if that's the worst thing, something's going to come out of that anyway. And it's like a huge life lesson. It'll make you stronger and grow in another way. Maybe that wasn't meant, but like what's the, like, even for the practical mind, which I have too. I'm a complete balancing act. I'm like, which one should I listen to?
Same.
A lot of people are.
Right. But that's how I had, all right, what's the worst thing? Okay. So it didn't work out. You know, something else will. But you put yourself out there. Put your
I just gave a talk recently about hearing your own gut instinct, both personally and professionally, and being able to notice what is your own inside voice versus the noise that we take in. And I could not agree with you both more.
I agree.
It is really hard to honor your inside voice. And it's not even honor. It's
Hear it.
hard to hear it.
Yeah.
And then once you hear it, it's almost impossible to honor. So it's getting to the hearing that, you know, helps you to get to the honoring. And sometimes you need to go on a retreat.
Yeah, I was just about to say, then you could just go to
Sometimes you
Mexico.
need an extended amount
Sometimes
of
you
time
just need to go to Mexico to do
get
it.
there. Because meditation, the word meditation in general intimidates so many people. It's much more commonplace now. Like, I mean, if we had this conversation 10 years ago, insert eye roll here now, right? But now we all, like, I mean, I meditate all the time, but I don't meditate the traditional way. I meditate the way you do. I'm a moving meditation. I'm singing. I sing loud sometimes, not on key, but like anything that moves me, or reading, or when I watch a show, or when I actually watch TV or a movie, that's me meditating because it's turning off the rest. I don't do multiple things when I do them. That's why I watch 1 out of the 7 shows that everyone else watches, because I actually take it in.
By the way, speaking of shutting out the noise, if you really want like a true moment of that, watch Fauda, because it is amazing, 1, but 2, it is in Hebrew, and you have to read the subtitles in order to know what's going on. So I said to Dave last night, we're putting off watching this season because like we just like weren't ready. We were watching something else, and we've watched all 3 first seasons, and I was like, we got to start Fauda. Like I heard it's amazing. We should just do it. And he's like, are you prepared? Like you got to put your phone down. You have to listen. You can't be like doing a weird Canva or whatever you're working on for Kerry or whomever else. I'm like, I'm in. And I like put my phone like underneath, and I was like, because you have to read the screen, and you absolutely cannot not pay attention. So to me, that in and of itself, you're 100% right. My friends tend to like make fun of me that I watch so much TV and I take in so much content, and I'm always like, no, it's like the music and blah blah blah. That to me is meditation. Yeah, it's disconnecting from the noise or the day to day.
Yeah, whatever that looks like for you.
That looks like for you.
All right. True meditation.
A
I fell asleep.
neurologist I listened to,
Truth.
He said you can actually you can only do one thing at once. You can't. We're not meant to. Our brains aren't meant to do more than one thing.
And especially as moms, we're doing like 70 things.
As we're listening to a book via a podcast while making a left and talking on our phone.
Correct.
Oops.
But
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think we balance
too many things,
and that's why it's hard to hear our inside voice. True meditation, I just joked with Kerry. True meditation and I don't get along because the minute I'm like in a zone, I'm asleep. Like a massage too. I'm like, can you go deeper so that I can stay awake? Like bring the pain on so that I actually can notice I'm having a massage.
I love that.
But you know, I think meditation comes in and of its own forms.
Yeah.
Oh, there's many different
types.
ways and different types. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe just let it punch a bag or, you know, go to a
that
class.
does feel good.
Yeah, it does. Okay. So our last question, my favorite question. My first and my last questions are actually usually my favorites. The what did you want to be, and now this one. So we consider both of your brands and both of your personal and professional brands to be what we call a dream crush of ours, which basically means as the Dreamcatchers, we believe that what you're doing is you're onto something. Like we're into it. We want to share that with the world. We want to highlight it.
As you said before, like an affiliate.
Yes.
But not so direct.
Yeah.
More like we're picking up what you're putting down.
And we're going to share that with the world. Yeah. And I think having the concept of the crush, which we could go into a little bit more when and if we work together with any of you, you know, we use that as an exercise with people. It's like, okay, if you're crushing on Siobhan and what she's up to, reach out to her. Right. Find out how she got to where she is. Maybe she's hiring. You know, this is a example, obviously, when and if you're building your huge team one day, Siobhan, or you, Kerry.
She's shocking the world.
Yes, you're manifesting, shocking the world in your voice memo.
It's in the works.
Yes, and that's really, you know, the concept of a crush, we all know what that means, right? We all know the feeling of having a crush on someone. So why can't we have a crush on a brand or a business? And what do we do with that crush, right? Do we follow them on Instagram? We might connect to them on LinkedIn. We might follow along with what they're doing. Something they're doing might feel inspirational to us. You could be Kerry and crushing on what Siobhan's doing and reach out to her, and next thing you know, you're planning a retreat. So that is kind of the concept of the dream crush. So wanted to ask you guys, not to put you on the spot, but obviously we sent this to you in advance, so sorry. Do you have any other, besides each other, and the Dreamcatchers, of course, dream crushes that you wanted to shout out? We find that it's nice to share this on the podcast, because if nothing else, it's shining light on maybe other women or brands or whatever it is, locally or nationally, that you are currently crushing on, that you think is just doing all the things right.
Well, this is slightly an easy one for me because I am in influencer school through Boss Babe, and I was drawn to them, and they pulled me in and made me feel like instead of down on myself and wanting to get rid of the business, it was too much. I got inspired, and I had more of like an F you attitude. I'm like, I got this. And I'm still in the midst of it. So Boss Babe, I really love their story, and they've inspired me. And Brendan Bouchard coaches me a lot through them, and they're two really recognizable brands and people I look up to in business.
It's a good share.
Oh, thanks.
What about you, Kerry?
I have so many to list. And now I feel like it's very hard to dial that in right now.
Yeah, it's probably hard. Now, let me help you. Marissa usually does this part, but I can say it. Is there anything locally, to if you want to take the kind of business hat off so that you don't feel like you're alienating or not any particular brand, anything that you can't live without, even if it's personally? Like, is that the Stanley Cup, by the way, Marissa?
No.
Okay. So Stanley Cup, do you guys know this yet? Okay. So Stanley Cup apparently is like the new brand of these that everyone is obsessing over. Okay. So like that could be a crush. You're just like, oh my God, I'm obsessed with I actually do have a crush on the Bubba. The Bubba Cup for me is my absolute, no other cup works for me. No other cup keeps us as cold. Like, and if I were looking for a job to work for a company, I'd probably look for Bubba and find out where they're based, see if I could work for them, follow them on Instagram. So any brand even that you crush on as a human, as Kerry, that you can't live without. To give you some inspiration, often people say Blonde Shallot, things like that locally that you like literally could not live life. Rook, places around town that you can't live without. Mine's Starbucks. Sorry, Rook. I do love Rook though.
Yes, and that's the thing. I love so many of them. I think my big crush right now, believe it or not, is Palmaya. And I'm just
a good crush.
Really crushing on them.
Yeah, I think what they're doing is really cool. And, obviously they're doing something right because they're attracting Robin Arzón and her family and all of you guys. And Siobhan Gallagher. I mean,
Robin obviously saw Siobhan first.
Yes, duh. I did. It's so funny.
She did like my comment. She gave me a love.
Amazing.
Little heart. I
love when I write to someone famous like that and they respond. I agree. It's happened to me before, and I think it's nice that they take the time to weed through their DMs and actually respond to them. I think that's really nice.
I agree.
I got one from Goop the other day.
You did?
That's
big heart on that.
Oh my God, I love that.
So fun.
I know.
That is a brand crush, Goop.
That's probably another one that I
Yeah,
have
speaking
right
of psychedelic mushrooms, if you have not watched the Goop documentary on Netflix, I think it's from Google. Did you watch it? Oh.
It was wild.
Wild. Oh my God, there were so many amazing episodes, one of which was about microdosing psychedelic mushrooms, so many others, but I loved that series.
Yes.
It was during COVID, I think, right?
Yes.
It was like right after I watched like Love is Blind. That's what I watched next. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so different.
I think it was like that, and then I was
Tiger King or
Tiger
something.
King.
Right, Tiger King. I mean,
The stuff we watch.
Memories.
Speaking of meditation. All right, you ladies, this was great. I'm so happy
great.
that we got to sit down with you both today. So if somebody wants to register for your retreat, do you have space still? What is your deal? How do they do that?
Yes. Do you know your link, or do you want me to do mine?
Either way, they can go to either of our sites.
So if you go to Connect with Monarch, like the butterfly, connectwithmonarch.com/retreats, you'll see it, or you can go down to the pull-down menu and you look for Progressive Retreats, and it's at the top.
Amazing.
And then it'll lead to Carrie's
Let me see
website.
this little gorgeousness that you have over here.
Oh, yeah. So this is sort of the, and then,
Beautiful.
yes, we have little flyers here.
Love it. Well, ladies, this was such a joy. I'm so happy that you were here today and that we got a chance to talk about all of this. And I think what you're doing, I speak on behalf of my sister and I both when I say you're doing something right. You know, it's just the truth. And you're obviously, for us at least, your light shone enough, or shined enough where, you know, we picked up what you're putting down. And we're so happy that I met Kerry through other connections, and then because of that, got you on the podcast today, Siobhan. This was just a joy. So thanks for being here.
I'm excited for your audiences to hear this. It was a very authentic, real conversation that I think your people need to hear.
I agree. It's not often, I'm sure some of your followers that know you from just screaming at them in front of the room know so much about your history. I think that's so cool. And what a great opportunity for you to be able to tell everyone what you're doing now.
Hashtag Dana Levy.
That's so funny.
I mean, so good.
Oh my God, daily candy.
Thank you
All
so
right,
much
well,
for
thank you to
having
Ming
us.
and Shared
Of
Universe.
course.
Thank you to our partner today, Wander, who helped us put this podcast together. As, you know, just having time to be here with Ming is a whole undertaking in and of itself as well. So thank you to Ming for doing all of our sound. And thanks to everybody who listened. And we'll see you next time.
And thank you, Dreamcatchers. You
it's
guys
our
rock
pleasure.
the party.
Thanks.
Favorite thing to do.
Our favorite thing to do. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.